So we're at Easneye Farm in Hertfordshire, and we're looking at two different fields to compare different soil management practices and what impact that's had on the soil. And we've dug two soil pits, which we're going to go and have a look at today. So this first field has been direct drilled for over 10 years. It's currently got a crop of beans in the ground. Straw has been incorporated almost every year over those past 10 years, and cover crops have been integrated as part of the system as well. So we should see a real impact of those practices on the soil structure, on soil biology, and we're going to take a look at that now. So here we can clearly see the topsoil and the subsoil. This is obviously where most of the biological activity is, and really that's what soil is. Without biology, your soils would look mostly like this, basically just chemistry, just physics and chemistry. So it's the biology that's created, that makes the soil look like this and function like this. So the biology is so important, and what we're seeing here is that transition from the sort of biologically active topsoil to the less biologically active subsoil. And there's a zone here of interaction between the topsoil and the subsoil. Where you have lots of biology in your soil, you have lots of deep burrowing earthworms. Those are going to be drawing organic matter, creating pore spaces down into that subsoil. So we've got a bit of mixing happening here. Mixing of minerals, mixing of carbon, mixing of biology, which is creating a bit of a less distinct zone between the topsoil and subsoil, and that's really good to see. That's just showing us that we've got that biological interaction, and of course we've got the plant roots as well. The plant roots will obviously follow down those earthworm channels deeper into the soil, and we're seeing roots further down to sort of 60-70 centimeters in this particular soil. The question often is raised is how much of this topsoil can we generate through the right practices, and I think there's not a clear answer, but in theory, through using the right farming practices, by increasing soil biology, by increasing the sort of diversity of plants in your cropping system, where you've got different rooting depths, different rooting structures, theoretically we should be able to increase this amount of topsoil and draw it further down into this soil profile. So this field is a neighbouring field to the other field we've just been in. It's exactly the same soil type, but it's been under quite different management for the last 10 years. For much of that time, it's been a plough-based system, and the straw has been taken away. Only in the last couple of years has it been brought into a similar management as the field next door. So it's now being direct drilled. It's recently been mould drained. And the straw is now being incorporated. But when we start looking at the surface of the soil, we are seeing some okay structure in the first sort of few centimetres. It's relatively crumbly, and I am picking out some earthworms as I go through this. But it is noticeably stickier than the previous field. And really, the next thing that really sticks out is the clear definition between topsoil and subsoil in this pit compared to the previous pit. The previous pit, we saw that sort of blurring of the line at this junction where you've got that biology drawing carbon, drawing organic matter down into the subsoil, and the mixing of that subsoil back into the soil profile. But we're seeing a much cleaner line here, and when I start poking around with the trowel, we're quickly getting into very, very sticky, hard, solid clay. Whereas in the previous soil pit, we were seeing a lot more mixing, and it was still quite crumbly, even down to these sort of depths. So we're quickly moving from biologically active at the top sort of 10-20 centimeters, but very quickly moving into a much more solid sort of subsoil clay layer without that sort of blurred interaction between soil biology and subsoil. So that's a clear difference. and we're not getting, you know, in the other soil profile, we were getting rooting down to sort of 60 to 70 centimetres, which we're not getting in this soil pit. So the test I'm going to show you now is called a VESS assessment. VESS stands for Visual Evaluation of Soil Structure. And in essence, it's just digging a hole and looking at the soil and giving it a score. But there's a fairly set methodology that you have to complete to make sure that it's comparable across the farm and across different parts of the field. So it starts with digging a hole, and the hole has to be, it's a square hole. It's the width of the spade on all four sides and the depth of a standard garden spade. I've inserted the spade on all four sides. Make sure most spades are slightly angled, so you've got to make sure that you angle your spade slightly forward when you're digging the hole, so that you end up with vertical sides. Not otherwise you end up with a cone shape, which is less useful for doing the assessment. So this bit can be quite tricky, extracting this block of soil all in one piece, but it is really important to try and get it out in one piece. You can't always get it out in one piece, but if you can, that makes the assessment a lot better. So I just sort of slowly try and prise this out, like so. And then we're lifting it out in one piece if possible. I haven't quite managed it there, and placing it on a sheet like this. Take out the remainder of the block that you haven't extracted in one piece, and we can place that at the bottom there. Once you've extracted the block of soil, because you've generally smeared all four sides of the block with your spade, you want to open it up so that you're assessing the structure without influence of the smearing of the spade. Once you've prized your soil block open like a book, you can start sort of looking at the soil structure. Start breaking it up slowly into smaller parts, and start looking at it, you know, interpreting it. Obviously we're seeing a huge great earthworm here, which is brilliant. We're seeing rooting throughout the soil as well, which is good. And what we're trying to sort of get at is the natural structure and aggregation of this soil. So certainly in the upper layers, we're seeing the soil crumble into smaller aggregates, which is a good sign. But we're also seeing slightly further down, we're seeing slightly larger aggregates, this sort of natural clumping of the soil into its constituent parts, and we're sort of assessing it, and we're giving it a score of between 1 to 5. And there's a chart which we can share a link to on the video, which shows you, has some pictures, and you're comparing the pictures to the soil in front of you and giving that a score. And really it is down to how large these aggregates are, how readily they break up in one hand. These generally break up quite well, but we've got some that are, you know, this is obviously a high clay content soil. So some of those aggregates are a bit larger and a bit harder to break up with your hands. So we're looking at that soil, giving it a score, and that is essentially your VESS score. So this next test follows on from your VESS assessment. Once you've looked at your soil, the soil block that you've extracted, and done your VESS assessment, you can use that same soil to do an earthworm count. You've probably already seen earthworms throughout the soil as you're doing the VESS assessment. So have a little pot handy and start placing those earthworms that you come across into a pot. And what you want to do, it's very straightforward, is spend about 5 or 10 minutes going through the soil and counting all the earthworms that you find. This can be a little tricky at times. You've got to make sure you break up the soil. They can be well hidden, but once you get your iron, you can start easily identifying those earthworms. And the key thing is, the key number that you should be looking for on an arable soil is more than 16 earthworms in a soil block of this size, and that's been scientifically proven as a key number that you should be looking for. 16 and above is beneficial for your farming system. It's an indicator of good soil health. So if you're getting more than 16 in this soil block, then you're doing well. If not, then you can work on some strategies to boost your earthworm numbers by growing cover crops, incorporating straw, exactly the sorts of things that are happening on this field. So what I'm doing here is a water infiltration test. This is a really simple method that anyone can do on their farm, just to get an understanding of how quickly water is infiltrating into your soils. There's many ways that you can do this test. You can use different sizes of rings, you can use different quantities of water, you can repeat it, but really the key thing is to have a method that is repeatable across your farm if you want to compare results. So the method you choose, use the same method, the same ring across the farm. So I've chosen a 6-inch ring, which is actually an old log burner flue pipe. So I've hammered it in to 3 inches deep into the soil, and then what I want to do is pour in an inch worth of rainfall into that ring. So to do that, I know that 450 mils of water equates to 1 inch in a 6-inch ring. So I've marked it on this bottle. If I pour the water up to that line, that's 450 mils. Touch more. Okay. Just close that up. So you get your phone, get the timer on, and you pour the water in, and you time how long that 1 inch takes to infiltrate into the soil. This particular field, this is the direct drilled field that's had straw incorporated into it. It should have a good infiltration rate. We should have lots of micropores in that soil due to the high biological activity, and already I'm seeing that water disappear quite rapidly. Wait for it to completely disappear, and that's your infiltration rate.